I went home to Denver thinking I'd get 10 quiet days before heading back to Fort Carson. 10 days to sleep in, eat my mom's cooking, and not think about supply reports or maintenance logs. That was the plan. By the second morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a paper towel pressed to my face, while a nurse at urgent care asked me how hot the coffee had been. But it started like any other visit. My parents' kitchen hasn't changed since high school. Same oak table, same chipped ceramic mugs, same morning news playing too loud. Brittany was already there when I walked in. She doesn't wake up early unless there's a reason. That morning, I was the reason. She was scrolling on her phone, jaw tight. My dad kept clearing his throat like he was about to mediate a hostage negotiation. My mom overfilled my coffee mug the way she always does when she feels guilty about something. I'd been home less than 24 hours. Brittany got straight to it. Her auto loan application had been denied. The dealership told her her credit score wasn't strong enough. She said it like the bank had personally betrayed her. Then she looked at me. "You've got great credit. Just let me use your card for a few months. I'll pay it back." That wasn't a question. It was a decision she'd already made. I've been in the Army for 10 years. Logistics. I manage equipment worth more than our entire neighborhood combined. I've deployed. I've handled accountability investigations. I don't gamble with paperwork, and I definitely don't gamble with my financial record. Letting someone run charges on my credit card isn't helping. It's underwriting their chaos. I kept my voice calm. I told her I couldn't do that. I explained briefly that I hold a security clearance. If she racks up debt and misses payments, it doesn't just hurt my credit score. It becomes a reportable issue. That's how clearance works. Financial irresponsibility raises red flags. She rolled her eyes. My mom sighed. My dad stared at his plate. Brittany leaned forward. "It's just temporary. You're acting like I'm asking you to commit a crime. You're asking me to take responsibility for debt that isn't mine." That didn't land well. My mom chimed in about family helping family. My dad added that I make good Army money and have benefits. That word benefits gets used a lot when people think your paycheck belongs to them. What none of them mentioned was the $4,000 I lent Brittany in 2019 to cover back rent, or the store card she opened years ago and listed me as a financial reference without telling me. I ended up paying $6,400 to clear that mess before it hit collections. I never brought it up at holidays. I never sent a Venmo reminder. I handled it quietly because I didn't want drama. Apparently drama was coming anyway. Brittany's voice got sharper. She said I thought I was better than everyone because I wear a uniform. That one's popular. As if accountability is arrogance. I told her no again. She stood up so fast, her chair scraped across the tile. Her hand wrapped around her coffee mug. For a second, I honestly thought she was going to storm out. Instead, she flicked her wrist. The coffee hit my cheek and jaw first. It was still hot enough to sting instantly. I felt it run down my neck and soak into my t-shirt. The mug clattered against the sink and didn't break. That almost annoyed me more than anything. The kitchen went quiet. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything back. I just sat there blinking, trying to process how fast things escalated. My mom rushed for a towel. My dad muttered something about everyone calming down. Brittany stood there breathing hard like she'd just won something. My face burned, not hospital-level serious, but enough that I knew I needed it looked at. I grabbed my keys. No one stopped me. On the drive to urgent care, my hands were steady. That surprised me. I've handled convoys under pressure. I've had junior soldiers panic over missing equipment. This wasn't chaos. It was clarity. The nurse examined the redness and asked what happened. I told her my sister threw hot coffee at me during an argument. She wrote minor thermal burn from hot liquid in the chart. I took photos while I was still in the parking lot. Not because I planned to sue anyone, because documentation matters. In the Army, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. Sitting in my car afterward, I replayed the morning. It wasn't about a credit card. It wasn't about a car loan. It was about expectation. Brittany expected me to step in. My parents expected me to smooth it over. I'd done it before. That was the part that bothered me most, not the coffee. I drove back to the house to grab a few things I'd left in the guest room. The kitchen was cleaned up like nothing happened. Brittany was gone. My mom tried to talk about dinner plans. My dad avoided eye contact. No one mentioned the burn on my face. I packed quietly. I wasn't supposed to head back to Fort Carson for another week, but I decided to leave that afternoon. It was a straight shot south on the interstate, and I needed the distance immediately. Before I left, my mom said, "Brittany just lost her temper. My dad said we shouldn't let something small divide the family." Small. I nodded. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to explain. I walked out to my car, tossed my bag in the passenger seat, and started the engine. As I pulled out of the driveway, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. The redness on my cheek had faded slightly, but it was still there. Visible. Real. I thought about the soldiers under my command. If one of them told me their sibling threw hot coffee in their face over money, I'd tell them to document it and create distance. I wouldn't tell them to hand over a credit card. Discipline isn't just for the field. It applies at the kitchen table, too. As I merged onto I-25 South, I adjusted my seat and gripped the steering wheel, already mentally shifting back into uniform mode. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt precise. Brittany thought the morning ended with her throwing coffee. It didn't. I watched the Denver skyline disappear in my mirrors as I headed toward the mountains, and for the first time in years, I stopped trying to defend what happened. The coffee wasn't new. It was just louder than the rest of it. Brittany has always lived like someone else would clean up afterward. Growing up, that someone was usually me. She was 2 years younger, louder, and somehow always the center of gravity in our house. If she forgot homework, my mom drove it to school. If she missed a payment, my dad called the bank. If she fought with friends, it became a family crisis meeting in the living room. When I needed something, the answer was usually, "You'll figure it out." And I did. I joined ROTC because I didn't want my parents paying for college. Not because they couldn't, but because I already knew how the money would be allocated. Brittany wanted to major in marketing at a private university 3 states away. That was the priority. I stayed in Colorado, took the scholarship, worked part-time, and graduated with a commission instead of debt. At my commissioning ceremony, Brittany showed up late. My mom blamed traffic. My dad asked if there was cake. I didn't resent it then. I just filed it away. Brittany bounced between ideas the way some people bounce between coffee shops. Boutique clothing business, nail studio, social media consulting. Each one required a little cash up front, a little bridge money, a little just until it takes off. In 2019, she called me crying because she was 2 months behind on rent. I wired her $4,000 without hesitation. She promised to pay me back in 6 months. I never saw it again. When I asked once casually, she laughed and said, "You're in the Army. You'll be fine." That line stuck. The store card incident was worse. She opened a retail credit card in college and listed me as a financial reference. I didn't even know until I got a call from a collections agency asking if I could help resolve the account. She hadn't used my social security number. It wasn't identity theft. It was just my name and my reputation being volunteered without permission. I paid $6,400 to settle it before it escalated. Not because I legally had to, because I didn't want collection calls hitting my record while I was up for sensitive assignments. I never told my chain of command. I handled it quietly. I told myself that was maturity. Looking back, it was enablement. On the plane, I replayed the breakfast conversation and realized something uncomfortable. Brittany didn't actually expect me to say yes because she thought it was reasonable. She expected me to say yes because I always had before. My parents reinforced it without meaning to. I was the responsible one, the steady one, the calm one. That translated into the one who absorbs impact. Back at Fort Carson, the mountains looked exactly the same as when I left. The post felt steady in a way my family never did. Soldiers were jogging in formation. A convoy of vehicles rolled past motor pool. Predictable, accountable, controlled. I prefer that. Monday morning, I walked into my office and caught my reflection in the glass of the supply cabinet. The redness on my cheek had faded, but it was still faintly visible. I didn't cover it with makeup. I didn't need to. I sat down and opened my laptop, not to check email, but to check my credit reports. All 3 bureaus. Clean. No new accounts. No surprises. That gave me a small sense of relief. Then I thought about something else. If Brittany was desperate enough to throw coffee over a credit card, what would she do next? That wasn't paranoia. That was a pattern recognition. I logged into each bureau again and placed a credit freeze. It took 10 minutes. PIN saved. Alerts turned on. No one opens anything in my name without me knowing. Then I called our family phone carrier and removed Brittany's line from my account. She'd been on it for years because it was cheaper together. She'd never missed a payment on the phone, but that wasn't the point anymore. The point was separation. That afternoon, I got a text from my mom. "You didn't have to leave like that." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry." I read it twice and set the phone down. Later that evening, Brittany posted an Instagram story, a selfie in her car. No mention of me by name, but it didn't need one. Some people think a uniform makes them better than their own family. I didn't respond and didn't screenshot it to argue. I did save it. Documentation matters. By the end of the week, 2 cousins had texted me, asking if I was really refusing to help Brittany in her time of need. That phrase made it sound like she'd been in a car accident, not turned down for a luxury vehicle. I answered each one the same way, calm, brief. "I'm not co-signing debt. That's it." On Friday, my dad called. He got straight to the point. "You embarrassed your sister." I leaned back in my office chair and looked at the whiteboard covered in equipment serial numbers. She threw coffee in my face. There was a pause. Then she lost her temper. That was the family standard. Temper explained everything. Accountability explained nothing. I realized something else during that call. No one in my family was asking Brittany to apologize. They were asking me to restore balance, to make it easier. I ended the call politely. Then I opened a notepad on my computer and wrote one sentence. No more quiet fixes. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was operational. I didn't know yet how far that decision would ripple. But I knew this, the version of me who paid $6,400. Without a word, wasn't running things anymore. I walked into the battalion headquarters Monday morning with a fresh fade, a clean uniform, and zero intention of letting family drama bleed into my work. Routine helps. PT at 0600. Shower. Coffee that no one throws. By 0730, I was reviewing vehicle readiness reports like nothing had happened. That's the thing about the Army. It doesn't pause because your sister can't manage her credit score. Still, I wasn't naive. Financial issues can become career issues fast if you ignore them. So before rumors or surprises had a chance to show up, I did something simple and boring. I went to legal assistance on post, not to press charges, not to create a spectacle, just to ask one question: if my sibling starts using my name in financial documents again, how do I protect myself? The attorney, a civilian who had seen every type of family mess imaginable, didn't blink when I explained the coffee incident. She focused on the practical. Freeze your credit. Document everything. If she lists you as a financial reference without consent, you respond in writing. If she forges anything, that's different. But reference misuse alone isn't illegal. Good, clean, measurable. I left with a short checklist and zero emotional advice. Exactly what I wanted. Later that afternoon, I stopped by my first sergeant's office. Not because policy required it, because transparency prevents assumptions. "There's some family financial tension back home," I told him. "I've taken steps to protect my credit, just flagging it in case something weird shows up." He nodded once. "As long as you're ahead of it." I was. Back at my desk, I checked my credit alerts again. Still frozen, still clean. I set up identity monitoring through my bank, added 2-factor authentication to everything, and changed passwords that hadn't been updated in years. It took less than an hour. Peace of mind is efficient. By Wednesday, the social media noise picked up. Brittany had shifted from vague comments to thinly veiled digs. Screenshots started landing in my inbox from extended family. "She thinks she's too good for us now. Imagine choosing a job over blood." Choosing a job. That's one way to describe a 10-year commitment to service. I didn't respond publicly. Silence irritates people who expect reactions. Instead, I removed Brittany from the shared cloud photo album our family used. Petty maybe, but access is access. That evening, I got a direct text from her. "So now you're playing victim." I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back 3 words. "Do not contact." Then I muted the thread. By Friday, the pressure changed shape. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in months called during lunch. He tried to be neutral. "She says you're overreacting." That it was just coffee. Just coffee. In logistics, we classify damage by impact. Minor, moderate, catastrophic. Coffee wasn't catastrophic, But it was physical, it was deliberate. And it came after I set a boundary. Boundaries are what people call overreactions when they don't like them. That night, I reviewed my finances again. No shared accounts, no joint loans, no co-signatures. I'd been careful over the years. The only real tie left had been the family phone plan. And that was already cut. Then something else clicked. If Brittany was trying this hard to paint me as unreasonable, she might be setting the stage for something bigger. Not illegal, just strategic. Like listing me as a support contact on business applications. I logged into the Secretary of State website for Colorado and searched her LLC, active, in good standing, filed last year. I downloaded the public filing documents. My name wasn't on anything. Good. Still, I saved copies. Saturday morning, while I was doing laundry in my apartment on post, my dad called again. "You've made your point," he said. "Let it go." Let what go? The lawyer talk. The credit freeze. It's excessive. That was interesting. I hadn't told him about legal assistance, which meant Brittany had. "She told you I sent a lawyer." He hesitated. That pause confirmed it. "She said you're threatening her." I leaned against the dryer and let that sink in. Protecting myself had already been reframed as aggression. "I haven't threatened anyone," I said evenly. "I froze my credit. That's it." He sighed like I'd disappointed him. "You're escalating." No, I was stabilizing. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and drafted something short. A simple written notice stating that I do not authorize anyone to use my name as a financial reference or guarantor without written consent. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't hostile. It was clarity on paper. I didn't send it yet. I waited. On Monday morning, I got the first sign that my instincts weren't paranoia. A voicemail from a regional bank in Denver. They were verifying information related to a small business credit application. They mentioned my name. They didn't say co-signer. They didn't say guarantor. They said listed as personal support contact. I deleted the voicemail after saving it to my files. Then I dialed the number back from my office, closed the door, and introduced myself as Captain Elise Harper. The woman on the line confirmed what I already suspected. My sister had submitted paperwork for a $75,000 business credit line, and I was listed as someone who would assist if needed. I closed my office door and lowered my voice before asking the bank representative to repeat exactly how my name appeared on the application. "Listed as personal support contact," she said again. Not a co-signer, not a guarantor, but referenced as someone who would assist if the business needed additional backing. Assistant. That word does a lot of work without meaning anything specific. I told her clearly that I had not authorized the use of my name in any financial capacity, and that I would not be backing the credit line. She thanked me, made a note, and moved on. Professional. Clean. I hung up and sat there for a minute, staring at the framed photo on my desk from my Kuwait deployment. My platoon had managed supply routes across miles of desert without losing a single pallet. Accountability down to the serial number. Meanwhile, my own sister was casually attaching my name to a $75,000 line of credit, like it was a coupon code. I didn't feel angry. I felt finished. That afternoon, I called a civilian attorney in Colorado Springs. I'd researched the week before. Not a family lawyer, a straightforward civil attorney who handled financial disputes and business misrepresentation. I explained the situation in simple terms. Coffee incident. Credit card demand. Credit freeze. Now this. He didn't dramatize it. If she's not forging your signature or using your social security number, this isn't criminal, he said. But you absolutely can send formal notice instructing her to stop using your name in any financial context. And you can request reimbursement for documented medical expenses if there was physical contact. There it was. Calm escalation. We drafted a short cease and desist letter. It stated 3 things. I do not authorize the use of my name title or military affiliation in any financial documents, applications, or references. Any future misrepresentation will be addressed through appropriate legal channels. I expect reimbursement for the urgent care bill related to the coffee incident. No threats, no emotional language, just position and consequence. I approved it. He sent it. 48 hours later, my phone lit up with Brittany's name. I let it ring. Then came the text. You really hired a lawyer over this. I didn't engage in debate. I replied with one sentence. You used my name without permission. Her next message was longer. Accusations about betrayal, about humiliating her, about how banks always verify references and I was overreacting. The irony of being accused of overreacting by someone who weaponized a breakfast beverage wasn't lost on me. I muted the thread again. By the end of that week, my mom called in tears. Not because of the coffee, not because of the credit application, because the attorney letter made Brittany look bad. That phrase stuck with me, not because it was unfair, but because it was accurate. Accountability does tend to look bad when you're not used to it. My dad got on the phone next. His tone was sharper than before. "You're making this public." "No," I corrected him. "I'm making it official." He insisted I could have handled it privately. I reminded him that I had handled things privately for years. The $4,000, the $6,400, the silent cleanups. Silence hadn't fixed anything. After we hung up, I logged into my bank account and paid the urgent care bill in full. It wasn't large, a few $100s after insurance. I saved the receipt in the same folder as the photos and the voicemail from the bank. Documentation matters. 2 weeks passed. The $75,000 credit line was approved anyway. That didn't surprise me. I was never the guarantor. I was just a comfort reference, a psychological boost on paper. But approval doesn't mean stability. By mid-month, I got another voicemail. Different tone this time. Different institution. A regional collections agency asking to confirm contact details for Brittany Harper regarding a business account that was past due. They hadn't called me because I owed money. They called because my number was attached somewhere in her paperwork ecosystem. I didn't return the call immediately. I pulled up her LLC filing again. Cross-checked addresses. Confirmed my name wasn't officially registered. Then I called the agency back from my office phone uniform on door closed. "I am not financially responsible for that account," I said clearly. "Remove my contact information." They asked if I was related. Yes. They asked if I had co-signed. No. That was enough. Still, I documented the call. That evening, Brittany posted again. "Some people love playing soldier more than being a sister." I almost laughed at that one. I don't play soldier. I manage equipment audits, transportation schedules, and the careers of 32 enlisted soldiers who trust me to not make emotional decisions with their futures. Being a sister shouldn't require financial sponsorship. 3 days later, I received confirmation from my attorney that Brittany had signed for the cease and desist letter. She hadn't responded formally, but she'd received it. My mom texted me a photo of Brittany at dinner with friends. Smiling, filtered, captioned unbothered. That's the thing about curated images. They never show the statements arriving in the mail. The next morning, I woke up at 500 for PT and felt lighter than I had in weeks. Not because Brittany was struggling, but because for the first time her financial decisions weren't automatically landing in my lap. And when my phone buzzed during lunch with an unknown Denver number, I answered it calmly, already knowing I wouldn't be underwriting whatever came next. I let the unknown Denver number ring twice before stepping outside the battalion building to answer it. It was my mom, not crying this time, controlled, careful. "We need to talk," she said. That phrase has never meant anything good in my family. She explained that Brittany's business line was already tight. Payments higher than expected. Inventory slower than projected. Words like temporary and cash flow floated around like they always do when money starts collapsing. Then she got to the point. "Your sister is under a lot of stress." The lawyer letter made everything worse. I leaned against the brick wall outside headquarters and watched a convoy roll past. Soldiers laughing in the back of a Humvee. Someone shouting about chow. Real problems, real deadlines. "I didn't create her debt," I said evenly. My mom pivoted. "She's good at that. You've always been the strong one." "She's not like you." That's been the family logic for decades. Brittany isn't like me. Brittany is emotional. Brittany is creative. Brittany is sensitive. All of which apparently translate to Brittany is not responsible. My dad joined the call halfway through. No greeting. "You embarrassed her in front of the bank." I actually paused at that. How? By refusing to stand behind her. Standing behind someone and standing under their debt are not the same thing. He continued, voice tightening. "If you had just co-signed, none of this would be happening." There it was, the escalation. They weren't just upset about the lawyer letter. They wanted me to rescue the credit line. "I'm not co-signing $75,000, I said plainly. Silence. Then my dad dropped the sentence that shifted something in me. "If this business fails, that's on you. Not on missed payments, not on poor planning, not on unrealistic projections. On me. I've been in uniform long enough to recognize projection when I hear it. If it fails, it's because it doesn't work, I said. Debt doesn't turn into profit just because I attach my name to it. My mom tried a softer angle. You're up for promotion soon. Don't let this family tension follow you. That one almost made me smile. My promotion board had already happened months earlier. Results were pending. None of them had asked about it until now. Suddenly, my career mattered as leverage. My career isn't connected to this, I said. Her debt is. When we hung up, I didn't feel angry. I felt detached. Back inside, I walked into a meeting about equipment shortfalls. A captain next to me was sweating over a missing generator worth $30,000. He'd misrouted paperwork. It was fixable, but it required ownership. No one blamed his sister. That contrast kept replaying in my head. Over the next week, Brittany escalated her own campaign. She stopped being vague online. She posted a caption that read, "Imagine having a sister in the military who won't even help you when you're building something." Comments flooded in. A few mutual acquaintances liked it. I didn't engage. Instead, I called my attorney and updated him on the collection contact and the family pressure to co-sign. He made a simple point. If you co-sign now, after formally disavowing involvement, you weaken your position, and you absorb liability. Don't mix signals. Clear, direct. I wasn't mixing anything. Friday afternoon, my dad called again. This time, he skipped preamble. The bank is reviewing the account. They're concerned about missed inventory payments. If they pull the line, we're exposed. That was new. I asked one question. Did you co-sign? A pause. Yes. That explained the urgency. My parents had attached themselves financially. They just hadn't mentioned it until pressure mounted. How much, I asked. $75,000, he admitted. But we thought it would stabilize. Stabilize. I closed my office door again. Not because I was overwhelmed, because I needed quiet. You chose to co-sign, I said. I didn't. He exhaled sharply. We assumed you'd step in if things got tight. There it was again. Assumption. I kept my voice level. I'm not stepping in. The line went cold for a few seconds. You're going to let your sister sink. I considered that question carefully. No, I said. I'm going to let her learn. He didn't like that answer. By the end of the month, the business credit line was officially frozen pending review. Late supplier payments triggered automatic restrictions. Brittany called me that night for the first time in weeks. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was shorter than usual. No yelling, no sarcasm. Just call me back. I didn't. Instead, I reviewed my own finances again. Savings steady. TSP contributions on track. No unsecured debt. No shared liabilities. Then I checked my Army email before shutting down for the night. A notification from Human Resources Command. Subject line, promotion board results available. I didn't open it right away. Not because I was nervous. Because for the first time in this entire situation, something in my life wasn't reactive. It wasn't damage control. It wasn't a response to someone else's chaos. It was earned. I clicked on the promotion email, read the single line confirming my selection to major, and then closed the laptop without reacting. There was no dramatic fist pump, no tears, just a quiet exhale. 10 years of evaluations, deployments, field exercises, inspections, and responsibility had led to that one sentence. It had nothing to do with my sister, her business, or a frozen credit line. That separation felt important. My phone buzzed again. Brittany. This time I answered. Her voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't defensive. It was strained. The bank froze the line. I waited. They're reviewing everything. They said because of missed supplier payments. That tracked. Once vendors report late invoices, financial institutions tighten quickly, especially on small businesses without strong cash flow. They asked about you, she added. About what? Why you sent that letter. There it was. The narrative shift. My boundary had become part of her explanation for instability. I didn't freeze your line, I said calmly. Your payment history did. Silence. She pivoted fast. You could fix this. Just co-sign temporarily. They'd unfreeze it. I leaned back in my chair and looked around my apartment. Nothing fancy. Government-issued furniture, a neat stack of field manuals framed unit photos. Everything in that room was built slowly. I'm not attaching my name to $75,000, I said. It's not even that much anymore, she shot back. We used some already. That was worse. How much is outstanding? Another pause. About 62. So within weeks, nearly $13,000 had been used and payments were already strained. She shifted tactics. Mom and Dad co-signed because they believed in me. I didn't say what I was thinking. Belief doesn't change interest rates. They're stressed, she continued. If the bank calls the balance, they can't cover it. Now we were closer to the truth. This wasn't about inventory. It was about my parents' exposure. I didn't tell them to co-sign, I said. You didn't stop them either. That sentence hung in the air. In my world, adults make informed decisions. In hers, responsibility is transferable. I'm not stepping in, I repeated. Her tone hardened. So you're just going to let this implode? I chose my words carefully. I'm not funding a business model that can't survive without my credit score. She hung up. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation tightened exactly how financial systems are designed to tighten. The bank reduced the available balance further. Automatic drafts bounced. Suppliers stopped shipping inventory until invoices were current. Brittany's online store started showing out-of-stock notices more often than products. My mom called twice in 1 week. We're dipping into savings, she admitted quietly. How much, I asked. Enough. Translation, more than they were comfortable admitting. I didn't offer a rescue plan. Instead, I asked a different question. Did anyone sit down with a financial advisor before opening this line? Silence again. Belief had replaced planning. Meanwhile, my own schedule was full. Battalion logistics review. Field training exercise prep. Counseling sessions with 2 lieutenants under my supervision. Real accountability, real consequences. No one in uniform had ever asked me to fix their personal mistakes because they were family. One afternoon, my dad called while I was reviewing maintenance shortages. They're threatening to accelerate the balance if we don't catch up. Accelerate. That means the bank demands the full outstanding amount due to default risk. How behind are the payments, I asked. 2 months. Interest compounds quickly at that scale. I'm not co-signing, I said before he could ask. I'm not asking you to co-sign, he snapped. I'm asking you to transfer enough to stabilize it. There it was. A bridge loan without paperwork. Informal. Untraceable. No! That's the same thing I said, just without my name on the contract. You've changed, he muttered. Yes, I had. The Army teaches you to assess risk before committing resources. You don't throw fuel at a fire because it's emotional. You evaluate whether the structure is stable first. That weekend, Brittany sent a long text outlining a recovery plan. Projected holiday sales, a pop-up event, a collaboration with a local influencer. Every solution depended on immediate liquidity. None addressed spending. I read it once and deleted it. Monday morning, while reviewing supply chain reports, my email pinged again, this time from my attorney. He had received a response from Brittany's side. No apology, no reimbursement, just a short acknowledgement that she would refrain from listing me in future financial matters. That was enough. Late that afternoon, my phone buzzed again with a Denver number I recognized. The bank. They weren't calling to ask for my help. They were all calling to confirm that I was not in any capacity responsible for the outstanding balance. I confirmed. Clean separation. That night, I went for a long run around post. Colorado air, steady pace, controlled breathing. My body felt strong. My decisions felt stronger. Back in my apartment, I checked my Army email again and reread the promotion confirmation. Major. Brittany's credit line was collapsing under its own weight. Mine had just expanded. I laced up my boots for morning formation, with the promotion email still sitting unread in my personal inbox for the 3rd time that week. It wasn't denial, it was timing. Brittany had left 2 voicemails overnight. My mom had sent one text that read, "Please just talk to her." My dad hadn't called. That usually meant he was dealing with something expensive. I checked my phone one last time before stepping outside. A short message from Brittany. They're calling the balance. That meant the bank was accelerating the remaining debt. When lenders lose confidence, they stop waiting for recovery and start protecting themselves. I slid my phone into my pocket and joined the formation. Running clears noise. 5 miles later, sweat soaking through my PT shirt, I felt grounded in a way family conversations never made me feel. After showering, I finally opened the promotion email again and read it slowly. Selected for promotion to Major U.S. Army. No qualifiers, no drama, just merit. I printed the email and placed it in my folder. Then I went to work. By mid-morning, Brittany called again. I answered this time. They're demanding payment in full if we don't restructure immediately, she said without greeting. How much is left? 58. So the balance had barely moved. They said Mom and Dad are liable. They co-signed, I said. You could fix this with one transfer. I didn't react to the word fix. Brittany transferring money doesn't fix a business model. Her breathing quickened. You don't understand small business. I manage supply chains worth millions. I understand margins. What are your monthly expenses? I asked. She hesitated. What's your net after inventory and overhead? Silence. That was the real problem. This isn't about pride, she said finally. This is about family. Family had become her favorite financial instrument. I kept my voice level. Family doesn't override math. She hung up again. Around lunchtime, my dad called. We're looking at pulling from retirement, he said bluntly. That hit harder than anything else. How much would that cover? Enough to negotiate. So now the stakes were real savings, not just credit lines. I'm not transferring money, I said. You're going to let your parents drain retirement because you want to make a point. There was anger in his voice, but underneath it, something else. Fear. I didn't open the credit line, I said. I didn't co-sign it. He exhaled hard. We thought you'd stand behind her. That sentence used to carry weight. Now it sounded like expectation dressed as loyalty. I stand behind responsibility, I said. We ended the call without resolution. That afternoon, my battalion commander called me into his office. I assumed it was about logistics planning. Instead, he closed the door and smiled. Congratulations, Major. The word landed differently when someone in uniform said it. Thank you, sir. We'll schedule the pinning ceremony next month. Small internal. Your call on guest. Guests. I hadn't even considered who would be there. I'll keep it simple, I said. Back at my desk, I stared at the blank calendar invite for the ceremony. I typed in the date. I added my company commander, first sergeant, and a couple of officers who had mentored me. I did not add family. That choice didn't feel dramatic. It felt clean. Later that evening, Brittany called again. Her tone had changed. Not sharp, not defensive, tired. They're negotiating a payment plan, she said. But Mom and Dad had to move money. How much? 40,000 from retirement to reduce the exposure. I closed my eyes briefly. That was the real cost. I didn't know they'd actually do that, she added quietly. Of course she didn't. Someone else always absorbed impact before it reached her. Did you sit down with the financial advisor? I asked. No. Did you cut expenses? Silence again. Do you even know your monthly burn rate? Why are you talking like that? She snapped. Because numbers don't care about feelings. She let out a short, bitter laugh. You really are Army through and through. I didn't take that as an insult. I'm not your enemy, I said. But I'm not your safety net anymore. The line went quiet. Then softer than before. So that's it. I considered that question carefully. It's not about ending anything I said. It's about changing it. She didn't respond. We ended the call without yelling. That night, I sat at my kitchen table in Colorado Springs with the printed promotion email in front of me, and my phone face down beside it. On one side of my life, a credit line collapsing under bad decisions. On the other, a rank earned through discipline and accountability. Both outcomes followed the same rule. What you build carefully holds. What you prop up with someone else's name eventually falls. I adjusted the rank on my patrol cap in the mirror of my office door and felt the weight of it before it was even pinned on. The ceremony was scheduled for 900 in the battalion conference room. Nothing elaborate, no band, no speeches about destiny, just a small formation, a few folding chairs, and the people who had watched me earn it. My phone buzzed while I was ironing my uniform that morning. Brittany. I let it go to voicemail. Then my mom. I let that go too. The ceremony wasn't about them. By the time I walked into the room, the space felt steady. My company commander stood to the side, flipping through notes. First Sergeant Ramirez leaned against the wall, arms crossed, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, but secretly proud. Colonel Harris walked in last. Ready, Major, he said quietly. Ready, sir. The words still felt new. They called the room to attention. The citation was short and factual. 10 years of service. Deployment to Kuwait. Battalion logistics operations. Performance evaluations. Nothing dramatic, just consistent work. When Colonel Harris pinned the gold oak leaf on my chest, he didn't give a motivational speech. He leaned in slightly and said, "You earned this." That mattered more than applause. Afterward, there were handshakes, a few jokes about now being officially old, a quick photo. Then everyone went back to work. No cake, no family group text lighting up with congratulations. I checked my phone during lunch. 3 missed calls from my mom, 1 text from Brittany. So you really didn't invite us. I stared at that message longer than I expected. She knew about the ceremony because she had access to my social media. I'd posted one simple line the night before. Promotion to Major tomorrow. Grateful. No location, no details. She must have assumed an invitation was automatic. I typed back. It was on post. Small. She responded immediately. You replaced us with coworkers. That word replaced felt misplaced. You chose not to stand behind me either, I wrote. There were a few minutes of silence. Then, this isn't about the credit line anymore. It never was. I didn't answer. That afternoon my dad called. You should have told us, he said. I posted it. That's not the same as inviting your parents. I considered that. When I needed support, you told me not to escalate. When she needed support, you told me to fix it. That's different. How? He didn't have a clean answer. There was frustration in his voice, but it was muted now. The edge had worn off over the past few months. We moved more money, he said finally, to close the line, so they decided to cut losses. How much? Enough to end it. I did the math in my head. If the balance was 58 and they'd already moved 40, that meant retirement savings had taken a significant hit. Is it done? I asked. Yes. No more credit line, no more negotiations, just debt converted into withdrawn savings. I didn't feel victorious. I felt confirmed. Later that evening, Brittany called again. I answered. It's closed, she said flatly. I figured. You could have prevented this. The tone wasn't sharp anymore. It was resigned. No, I said. I could have delayed it. There's a difference between preventing collapse and postponing it. She was quiet for a long moment. I thought you'd always back me, she admitted. That was probably true. Until it wasn't. I backed you when you were trying, I said, not when you were expecting. She didn't argue. Instead, she asked something unexpected. Do you ever get tired of being the responsible one? That question caught me off guard. Sometimes, I said honestly. Must be nice to have control. Control isn't automatic, it's built. You can have it too, I said. But it starts with numbers, not excuses. She didn't respond right away. Then quietly, Mom and Dad are mad at me. That was new. They should be upset about the situation, I said carefully. Not about you as a person. She exhaled. I didn't think it would go that far. Most people don't. That's how debt works. We ended the call without yelling. That night, I took the framed photo from the ceremony and set it on my bookshelf. Not in the center, not on display, just in its place. My phone buzzed once more before I went to bed. A text from my mom. We're proud of you. Short, simple, late. I didn't overanalyze it. I didn't push for more. I turned off the light and let the room go quiet. In 1 month, a credit line had opened, strained, and closed. In the same month, I'd pinned on major. Both outcomes followed rules. One ignored them. One respected them. I was halfway through a logistics briefing when my phone buzzed in my pocket, and I already knew it was her. Brittany had stopped calling out of anger. Now she called when she ran out of options. I let the meeting finish before stepping into the hallway to check the message. Can we talk for real this time? No accusations, no sarcasm, just that. I called her back. She picked up on the first ring. I met with someone, she said. Who? A financial counselor. That caught my attention. She continued slower than usual. They went through everything. My expenses, my margins, the way I structured the inventory. And I was upside down before the credit line even opened. There it was, the math she'd been avoiding. I leaned against the wall outside the conference room, watching soldiers move between offices with clipboards and purpose. What did they recommend, I asked? Shutting the business down, or scaling it back to almost nothing. That sounded realistic. They also said, I need to consolidate the remaining debt. And stop pretending I can sell my way out of it. That was probably the first honest sentence I'd heard from her in months. So what do you need from me, I asked. A pause. Help, but not like before. That was different. What does that mean? It means I'm not asking for your credit card. Or for you to co-sign anything. I waited. I need advice. And maybe a short-term structured loan. Written. With terms. There it was. Not entitlement. Proposal. I didn't answer immediately. Why me, I asked? Because you don't panic. And because you won't lie to me. That part surprised me. For years, she'd accused me of being rigid. Cold. Too structured. Now that structure was the reason she called. I won't transfer money without a plan, I said. I know. And I won't attach my credit to anything. I know. And if I help at all, it's documented. Clear repayment schedule. Automatic payments. Okay. The conversation felt strange. Not tense. Just level. What's the total remaining personal debt, I asked. She gave me the number. It wasn't catastrophic. It was manageable with discipline. Are you still using the business account for personal expenses? A long silence. Not since the counselor meeting. Good. We talked numbers for 20 minutes. Monthly income, expenses, minimum payments. What could realistically be paid down over 12 months if she cut non-essentials? At one point, she laughed softly. I never thought I'd be asking my sister for a payment schedule. You're not asking me, I corrected. You're building one. That distinction mattered. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and pulled up a blank spreadsheet. If I was going to be involved at all, it would be in daylight. I drafted a simple outline: total debt remaining, required monthly minimum, additional principal target, timeline to zero balance, written agreement, automatic transfers only, no missed payments tolerated. Then I added one more line: if payments are missed twice, agreement void. Not dramatic, just clear. That evening, my mom called. She said, "You talked." We did. She sounded different. She is. My mom hesitated. We shouldn't have expected you to fix it. That was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get. I wasn't trying to punish anyone, I said. I was trying to stop the pattern. I know that now. Progress doesn't always look emotional. Sometimes it just sounds quieter. The next day, Brittany emailed me the draft plan from the financial counselor. It wasn't flashy. It was boring. And boring is good when it comes to money. She'd already listed items she was selling. Inventory clearance, a couple of designer bags, even the car she'd been trying to upgrade in the first place. That part almost made me smile. She called that evening. If you decide not to help, I'll still follow the plan, she said. That sentence told me more than any apology could. I'll help with structure, I said, not with rescue. What does that mean? It means I'll review the plan. I'll help you tighten it. But I'm not wiring you a blank check. That's fair. Fair. We hadn't used that word in a long time. Before hanging up, she asked one more thing. Do you still think I'm irresponsible? I thought about that carefully. I think you were, I said. I think you're trying not to be. She didn't argue. That night, I opened my laptop again and adjusted the spreadsheet. I wasn't excited. I wasn't emotional. I was deliberate. I'd spent years being the quiet safety net. Then I spent months being the wall. Now I was choosing something else. A boundary with terms, not because she deserved rescue, but because discipline, when it's real, applies to everyone, including me. I reviewed Brittany's revised budget at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that no one was about to weaponize. The numbers were tighter this time. Inventory reduced, personal expenses cut, streaming subscriptions gone, dining out slashed, the car upgrade idea completely off the table. It wasn't glamorous. It was realistic. She had included the repayment timeline exactly the way we discussed. 12 months, fixed amount, automatic transfers, no vague promises. I made 2 adjustments and sent it back. If you miss 2 payments, this ends, no extensions. She responded within 5 minutes. Understood. We drafted a short written agreement. Nothing complicated. Just enough to make expectations clear. She signed electronically. I signed. A copy went into a folder labeled Family Financial. That folder used to contain receipts for quiet rescues. Now it contained terms. The first automatic transfer hit on schedule. It wasn't a large amount, but it wasn't late. That mattered more than the number. Over the next few weeks, something subtle shifted in our conversations. She stopped asking for favors. She started asking questions. What's a realistic emergency fund target? How do you calculate interest savings if you pay extra principal? The first time she asked about interest rates without rolling her eyes, I almost laughed. Meanwhile, my own life moved forward. As a newly promoted major, my responsibilities expanded quickly. I was overseeing larger budgets, more personnel, higher expectations. There's no room for emotional spillover at that level. One afternoon during a training review, I caught myself thinking about how different the year looked compared to that breakfast. Back then I was reacting. Now I was directing. My parents adjusted too. They didn't call asking me to intervene anymore. They called to update me. We're meeting with a retirement advisor, my dad said one evening. We need to rebuild. That sentence carried weight. It meant they'd stopped blaming and started planning. My mom was quieter but more direct. You were right about structure, she admitted. I didn't gloat. I didn't remind her about the coffee or the accusations. There was no point. Brittany's business scaled down to a smaller, manageable online operation. No credit line. No inflated inventory. Just controlled orders and pre-sales. It wasn't impressive on social media, but it wasn't bleeding either. One night, she called after making her 3rd consecutive on-time payment. I never realized how much I was avoiding, she said. Avoiding what? Looking at numbers. I used to just hope sales would fix everything. Hope isn't a strategy. It's a delay tactic. Hope works better with spreadsheets, I said. She laughed. Not defensive, just honest. There was still tension sometimes. Old habits don't disappear overnight. But the dynamic had changed. I wasn't the emergency exit anymore. I was the boundary. About 6 months after the credit line collapsed, I flew home for a short weekend visit. Walking into my parents' kitchen felt different. Same table, same mugs, different energy. Brittany was already there when I arrived. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just less inflated. She handed me a cup of coffee carefully. "Peace offering," she said. I took it. No one brought up the old incident directly. They didn't need to. It was understood. After dinner, Brittany pulled out her phone and showed me her debt tracker app. Color-coded bars, progress percentages. "Down 20%, she said. "That's solid," I replied. She nodded. "It's boring. Boring keeps lights on." My dad chuckled at that. My mom smiled quietly. There was no dramatic apology, no cinematic reconciliation, just a shift in behavior. That's how real change usually looks. On my flight back to Colorado, I thought about how easy it would have been to wire money that morning at breakfast months ago, to absorb another financial hit and avoid conflict. It would have delayed everything. It wouldn't have fixed anything. Stopping financial support didn't destroy my family. It forced clarity. Back at Fort Carson, I walked through the motor pool during an inspection and watched a young lieutenant double-check a serial number before signing off on equipment. Accountability isn't cruel, it's stabilizing. That evening, I opened my banking app and saw Brittany's latest payment marked completed. No drama, no emergency calls, just consistency. I closed the app and set my phone down. For years, I thought being the responsible one meant cleaning up quietly, absorbing damage so no one else had to feel it. Turns out responsibility sometimes means refusing to fund chaos, not to punish, not to prove a point, just to let reality do its job. And once I stopped financing chaos, everything, including me, started operating on solid ground. Looking back, the coffee wasn't the real breaking point. The credit card wasn't either. It was the moment I realized that love without boundaries turns into obligation, and obligation without limits turns into resentment. This family revenge story was never about destroying my sister. It was about breaking a pattern that had been running quietly for years. Discipline didn't just shape my military career, it reshaped my family. I didn't win because she lost. I won because I stopped confusing support with sacrifice. And once I stopped financing chaos, everyone had to grow up, including me. If you connect with stories about family drama, financial boundaries, and real-life family revenge stories, where strength comes from discipline instead of destruction, make sure you subscribe. There's more coming: real stories, real consequences, and the kind of lessons nobody teaches you at the kitchen table.